Welcome. Scott here. I will be covering on the upcoming raid event, Howling wins Tiamat raid. The featured units for the event are Laguna from Final Fantasy VIII, Thancred from Final Fantasy XIV, Maria from Final Fantasy II and Pernello from Final Fantasy XII. Thancred's LD and rework will be making their debut. Thancred and Maria will be getting their C90 awakening. We will be fighting the two Tiamat, which has 14 million HP each. The boss has no major resistances. The turn requirement for the fight is 90 and the HP requirements is 15,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Firstly, let's go through the LUFENIA plus orb conditions. The orb will be activated at the start of the fight at the counter of 15. Every action taken by your party members will downtick the orb by 2. To uptick the orb, you need to fulfill either one of the following. 1. Deal at least 800,000 cumulative HP damage in one turn. Fulfilling this condition will reduce the downtick of the orb by 1. 2. The boss takes BRV damage from debuffs, buffs, or special effects. The effect needs to come from either sap or poison. Spheres that give poison or sap effect like Ferris or Thancred sphere also works for the boss. The boss needs to take a turn for the debuff to take effect. The LUFENIA countdown ability is non-fatal one. Upon triggering it, the boss will cleanse all debuffs and follow up with Jet Burst Plus, an AoE Brave guaranteed hit Brave attack that inflicts the heat debuff for one turn. Units that can reliably uptick the orb are Laguna, Thancred, Maria, Shantato, Chaos, Kefka and Charlotta. Alternatively, you can also bring debuff cleansing calls instead of these units. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. Ferris Enchanting Dance debuff is very useful here as it drains the brave that boss gains after its brave attacks. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Gavrin, Lilisette, Fran, Maria, and Ignis are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura type HP damage up calls like Sid and Kamari are also viable. Most recently C90 units have HP damage up Aura call. You can use Dissidia DB call finder to find out more. HP damage up calls like Gavrin and Lilisette have poison or sap debuff embedded in the call effect. In additional of the debuffs mentioned earlier, you can also consider such calls for sap or debuffs utility. They are Sephiroth, Chaos, Sarah, X-Death and Amidalion. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. Like other LUFENIA Plus events, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. They are Garnet, Eiko, Ramza, Horum, Setzer, Agrias, Katsa, Queen, Ishtala, Bartz, Rem, Lyud, and Sarah. Garnet or Ramza BT plus support will help to trivialize the fight that you could finish the fight a lot faster. If you don't want to play to the orb, you can bring Eiko for the fight. The fight features some mechanics that will result to boss take some turn. Thus having damage mitigation will make the fight easier by ensuring your party are safe from any stray HP attacks. Options include Snow, Core, Gladiolus, Warrior of Light, Beatrix, Orin, Zack, Guy, Bash, and 9. Units that can constantly inflict sap and poison debuffs or auras are Maria, Cloud of Darkness, Kefka, Chaos, Shantato, X-Death, Thancred, Sephiroth, Sarah, Kaduch, Lilisette and Charlotta. As the boss will warp its turns with 999% HP and brave damage resistance, it is important to keep the brave under control. Other than helping to uptick the orb, sap and poison effects are really useful here to drain the brave that boss gains from its brave attack. Chaos and Maria are the premium debuffers for the fight, as they will always ensure the Brave is 0 with their debuff mechanics. As the key orb mechanics requires the boss to act, Traps debuffs will help a lot with their off-turn damage. Examples are Laguna, Trey, Ace, Vanille, and Leon. As the boss will gain 999% Brave damage resistance on their turn warp and could gain a huge amount of Brave, you can deploy instant break or gravity shaving units for the fight. Some of the recommended units are X-Death, Bartz, Noel, Strago, Maria and Kais. Pernello and Maria have mechanics that can help to set the boss Brave to 0 so you can break them easily. The boss key attacks feature a guaranteed hit debuff, Heat, which will bypass debuff evasion. Other than having Brave poison effect, the Heat debuff has HP poison that scales off the boss attack stats. You can consider bring a debuff cleanser for the fight. They are Pain, Mog, Sidor, Yuppie, Yuna and Pernello. Thankfully the boss Heat debuff duration only lasts 1 turn, you can easily remove by using an AA skill. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. The boss gains LUFENIA aura at the following thresholds: start of the fight, 79% and 49% HP threshold. You need to give the boss a turn to prevent heat rising. Heat rising will result the boss in gaining massive Brave, have their recast gauge filled and framed their turns, which result them to be immune to turn delay or turn deletion. In order for the boss to remove the effect, they need to use the recast ability. At the 79% and 49% HP thresholds, the boss will swap their turns with cut in turn, where they will gain 2 more turns on top of the swap turn. They will also gain 999% Brave and HP resistances, where your Brave and HP damage will hit once for 3 turns. They will also gain a post-turn Brave Regen. To minimize the possibility of a stray HP attack that could result from this, it is best to make use of Sap or Poison debuff to keep their Brave under control. You can use a Call ability to negate its effect. I will discuss more on this when I am going more in depth regards the cut-in mechanic. The boss recast ability Jetfire is an AoE guaranteed hit Brave attack that will inflict Heat debuff. Heat debuff will inflict Brave poison along with the HP poison that scales off the boss attack stats. The debuff lasts for 1 turn. Use an AA or debuff cleansing skill to remove the effect. When one of the boss HP drop to 29% HP threshold, both bosses will enact an 800k HP shield. If you don't break the shield and boss gets a turn, it will use Jet Burst, which is an AoE guaranteed Brave plus HP attack. The attack will also inflict the Heat debuff. Overall, this fight is better suited for a hit and counter setup than a boss no turn, launch and nuke setup. Brave control debuffs like Ferris, Maria, Chaos, Setzer, Cater and Trey are very useful for the fight here. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Like the previous LUFENIA Plus fights, the boss will gain big stats boosts, Brave damage, and Brave gain reduction auras when you deplete their HP to a certain threshold. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight, 79% and 49% HP thresholds. At the start of the fight, it will boost all its defenses by 200%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense to 300%. The maximum Brave damage reduction auras is 90%. The maximum Brave gain reduction auras are 90%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the Brave gain and Brave damage reduction auras, you can use Brave damage up debuffs like Jack, Sephiroth, or deploy a support with Brave damage up like Lena. Rem is an example of a few supports that provide Brave gain up. When one of the boss HP drop to 29% HP threshold, both bosses will enact a 800k HP shield. You need to break them. If you don't break them, the boss will use Jet Burst, which is an AoE guaranteed hit, Brave plus HP attack. It will also inflict the Heat debuff. Upon breaking shield, the boss will lose its power gained from the shield. It will be inflicted with 2 debuffs, a 50% defense down debuff along with 50% brave damage resist down debuff. Both debuffs last for a turn. Make use of this window to maximize your damage. Now let's look into more in-depth regards to one of the key boss mechanics, cut in turn order. The boss will swap their turns at the 79% and 49% HP thresholds. The swap mechanics works like the Emperor boss fight in the recent story chapter. Upon swapping the turns with your party, the boss will gain Brave along 999% HP and Brave damage resistances for 3 turns. The boss will also gain 2 instant turns on top of the swap turn. The boss will also gain a post-turn Brave regen as well for those 3 turns. As the boss will gain 3 consecutive turns, it is important to prevent it from gaining too much Brave, or else you will likely encounter a stray HP attacks from one of those 3 turns. To handle this mechanic, you can use either one of the following options. 1. Bring a damage mitigation call like Warrior of Light LDCA. 2. Freeze the boss Brave gains with Cater or Setzer LDCA. 3. Bring a damage mitigator like Zack, Galbez BT, or Beatrix with her Holy Knight Safeguard buff. 4. Use a sap or poison debuff call to drain their Brave gains. The lower the boss current Brave is, the less likelihood that your party will encounter a stray HP attack. Thancred's poison debuff will pretty much negate this easily. 5. Use a debuff disable call like Fang. Fang's daze debuff will last for 3 turns, so it will negate those turns as well. 6. Use Maria LDCA. It will ensure the boss Brave will be set to 0 before it acts. 7. Always ensure the boss will be broken with Chaos Doom debuff. This is probably the toughest part of the mechanic you need to handle for this fight. Once you have passed these thresholds, the fight will become significantly a lot easier. At the start of the fight, you need to give the boss a turn to act, otherwise you will trigger the heat rising mechanic. This mechanic will trigger automatically if the boss didn't get a turn when its HP gets depleted to 79%. Upon activation, the boss will gain massive Brave and filled its recast gauge to full. It will gain 100% damage resist along framing its turn. The boss will become immune to delay and turn deletion. In order to remove the effects, you just need to let the boss uses its recast ability. Now let's focus on the attacks in the boss arsenal that has the heat debuff. Firstly, let's discuss more about the debuff first. Heat comprises of 2 types of poison. The first poison is a Brave poison that scaled off the unit's initial Brave. The second one is a HP poison that scales off the boss attack. The higher the boss attack stats is, the more potent the HP poison is. The poison won't result in a unit KO. As the debuff is a guaranteed hit debuff, it will bypass debuff evasion ability like Selpha's Wall or Lena's Winddrake Arrow. Thankfully this debuff only lasts for a turn. To minimize the effect of its HP poison, you can lower the boss attack stats with attack down debuffs. The boss recast ability, Jetfire, is an AoE guaranteed hit Brave attack. The boss countdown ability, Jet Burst Plus, will result the boss cleansing all debuffs, followed by an AoE guaranteed hit Brave attack. The boss will use Jet Burst if you don't manage to break the shields triggered at the 29% HP threshold and allow it to get a turn. Jet Burst is the only HP variant of these attacks. It is an AoE, guaranteed hit Brave plus HP attack. All the abilities mentioned on this slide will inflict the heat debuff. When you are about to finish the fight, do keep a close eye on the HP requirements. Use a burst heal call like Lena, Rude, Rem or Purim, or use a healing A before you do the finishing blow. I have come to the last slide of the guide. On the left of the screen, you can see the boss key basic attacks. Maelstrom will result boss gaining Brave followed by a tornado attack that set your party Brave to 1. Thunderbolt is double Brave gain, single target Brave attack that has a 40% chance of inflicting paralysis on the target. The boss can use Massive Strike, a single target Brave attack that allows the boss to have 2 consecutive turns. It will gain an instant turn if it breaks or the ability was used on a broken target. On the right side of the screen, you can see the pointers that you need to take note of when doing the fight. 1. Remember to give the boss a turn to avoid triggering heat rising. 2. Bring brave control calls, as the boss can swap its turn with your party at the 79% and 49% HP threshold. Chaos Doom debuff works like a charm here. 3. You need to give the boss 3 turns to remove 999% HP and brave resistances gained from the cut in turn order, or your party will be dealing once. Damage mitigation and brave control will help a lot here. You can use the tips that I mentioned earlier. 4. Save your summon or burst phase for the 29% HP threshold so you can have the turns to break the 800k shields gained. Stand by a damage mitigation call, example, Warrior of Light LDCA, if you are unable to break the shields. 5. The heat debuff has HP poison that scales off the boss attack stats. Attack down debuffs will make the poison a lot more manageable. Stand by burst healing calls, when you are about to finish the fight, for the HP requirements. With this, we have come to the end of the boss guide. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please do give the video a like. Please do subscribe to my channel for future similar content. Bye.